Hello everybody, welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube and Twitch channels. It is Monday once again. Holy crap, that's loud. It is Monday once again, and we are here for the coffee stream. We've got plenty of things to talk about, of course, including question period. And we've got I've got a bunch of videos that we're gonna watch. We're gonna have fun, and I am going to be like sporadically reminding everybody during the stream. Oh, excuse me. That there is a Streamlabs goal. It is. I know it's. I don't know if it's visible today, but we have a Streamlabs goal because our water heater died. So anything that comes in, I will be doing jumping jacks. And you will be helping replace the water heater. We have not, we are still at 0% of the goal, but we've got to start somewhere. So here we go. We're gonna hang out here, and unfortunately, because I have no coffee, it's a tea stream today. But at least sound alerts. Okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, right. We are going to be having a tea stream today because I don't have coffee, which is unfortunate, but oh well. Such is life, right? So I've got Twitch chat pulled up. I've got YouTube chat pulled up. I'm ready to do jumping jacks. and ready to watch videos. So I hope everyone's having a good day and ready to hang out with me. Let me just get back over to my section over here where I need to be. Okay, perfect. Okay. So, what should we start with? Let's start with the BetterHelp thing. That's what we're going to start with. Because I'm sure we all remember BetterHelp. And I watched a video a couple of weeks ago that said that they were coming back. And I have also been seeing a lot of creators saying that they're sponsored by BetterHelp. So that's something that I've noticed as well. So we're going to take a quick listen to this and see what happens with this. Yes. Make me suffer with $1 jumping jacks. Do that. Do that, please. So BetterHelp was a counseling scam. I'm just going to say it. It was an online counseling scam that a whole bunch of YouTubers were sponsored by back in the old days, like 5-6 years ago. BetterHelp was bad. They were not even training or hiring trained counselors. They weren't vetting the counselors. They were charging a ridiculous amount of money for people to receive help. Like, and when I say ridiculous, I mean like twice as much per month as you would do through a private counseling service. It was bad. It was bad. And they seemed to be, gone away after they were called out the first time. And they disappeared for a good 5-6 years. But they seem to have come back. And as of a couple weeks ago, I noticed this, and I don't think that it was getting any better. And this video that we're about to watch just demonstrates that. We're gonna take a listen and see, because it says the BetterHelp virus is back. The BetterHelp YouTube virus is back, which means I'm gonna guess that they haven't changed their tune at all. Let's see.
This video is brought to you by Incogni, which is actually kind of fitting given the subject matter. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they are providing to the entire upper echelon community.
Yeah, that is kind of funny that Incogni is sponsoring them.
Is BetterHelp. Odds are a lot of people watching this have actively seen advertisements for the service here on YouTube, maybe Facebook or elsewhere, loosely understanding it to be an online therapy application for matching patients with licensed professionals.
Except I, from the very get-go, was very skeptical about the licensure of these professionals. But go on.
Pretty simple. The ads paint a picture of something kind or approachable, and the sponsorships they authorize talk about how burnout is a really difficult process and how help is just a few clicks away. But with tens of millions of dollars pouring into the YouTube ecosystem, hundreds and hundreds of videos promoting the service, and a rapidly growing list of creators affiliated with them, I wanted to examine the full scope of this service, because it's not quite what people think it is, and prospective customers need to be aware of that.
I've seen BetterHelp sponsorship ads on Facebook. I have never searched them out, but I have seen BetterHelp ads on Facebook because I have searched for counseling and psychiatry and all that stuff in my area. So Facebook, in its grand wisdom, because of course they work with Google, they've been like, I see that you are mentally disturbed. Perhaps you would like BetterHelp to help you. I'm like, no, thank you.
To do this, we need to go back in time, 2018 was many things, some good, some bad, but relevant for today's video, 2018 was the time frame when BetterHelp initially found traction on the platform
And
by
I
sponsoring
remember
a
that.
very large number of YouTube creators. These creators would very often talk about how valuable the service is. They would draw connections to their own personal lives or express their own struggles, which
Philip DeFranco had one. Who else? Like everybody had a sponsorship by these guys.
is fine. People can promote things that they also believe in. Except there was a bit of a discrepancy between what was being said about the company and what users were actually experiencing. Anecdotal evidence is overly abundant here, but the gist of it then, and still today now, is that many users were complaining about unnecessary fees, difficulty canceling subscriptions, or problems with the service that left them completely unsatisfied.
Right, like why would you need to cancel your subscription? Either they helped you and they didn't, and now you're canceling your subscription because you're upset, which, doesn't really help you mentally if you're trying to get better.
As an example, users who actively subscribed to the platform often had enormous difficulty canceling that subscription. They were repeatedly required to confirm their intentions and faced with things like this. Typically, when you go to buy something or cancel something, green means yes, do the thing I'm trying to do, and red means no, I changed my mind. Also, buttons to the left typically denote cancellation or go back, and buttons on the right signal confirmation or go forward.
Yep.
BetterHelp, even though this is a relatively small item in the grand scheme of things for the video, would pretty blatantly try to trick their customers into hitting the green button on the right, which would then actually halt the process of cancellation, because the goal wasn't convenience or satisfaction. The goal was to manipulate their user base into remaining on the platform with an active subscription, which would then continue to rack up charges even in their absence.
That's sneaky. That's pretty sneaky. And like, this is the thing with visual stuff, is it really fucks with your mind, and they're able to use your vision against you. That's honestly some of the reason why I'm glad I don't have vision, because visual tricks like this are they're everywhere, right? Advertisers take advantage of your vision all the time. They take advantage of your peripheral vision. They take advantage of the way that your brain reacts to seeing things. Advertisers study this shit. They study how your eyes and your brain work, and they study how the two connect to each other. It's fucking crazy. The amount of psychology and science that goes into tricking you into buying things.
Something else we can look at to kind of help showcase this is that even last year, that being 2023, BetterHelp dispersed $93 million in refunds, which constituted 8% of their entire revenue stream.
That's not a good thing. If 8% of your revenue is going to refunds, you are not producing a good product.
It's difficult to find direct comparisons for that figure, but it's worth noting that the number of people who actually pursue and complete a refund process, especially a difficult one, is substantially lower than the number of people who are overall dissatisfied with any given service, which begins to put things in perspective. You don't have to look very far to start finding many more clues about what kind of company this actually is, but try this one on for size. After a pretty horrifying tragedy took place at a festival called Astro World in Houston, there's a 1,200-page police report about what happened, which is pretty chilling, honestly, but the gist of it is that a hyped-up crowd compressed in on itself at a concert, and multiple people died as a result of that.
Oh, is that that was that rapper that got everybody hyped up, and then, okay, I can't remember his name, but I think I remember.
After that tragedy occurred, BetterHelp partnered up with Travis Scott, who many believe to be partially responsible despite managing to avoid criminal charges, and offered a free month of online therapy to all those affected. Yeah, the subpar remote therapist application in partnership with a negligent rapper who excited a crowd and caused a tragedy.
Serious? I didn't know they did that. That's shame. That is disgusting. That is some shady bullshit. And I guarantee you that even if you got a month free, you would still have to put in your credit card info to get it. Like, holy crap.
Are showing how much they care together by basically giving you 4 free telehealth sessions on an application that breaches your privacy and tries to keep you trapped in a cycle of payments. That's really
Yay!
fantastic,
How
guys.
very
Good job.
nice.
On top of this, as if that's not already enough to form a judgmental opinion of them, there was a bit of a problem with their terms of service. According to archives, their TOS previously contained a segment which said, quote, "We do not control the quality of the counselor services, and we do not determine whether any counselor is qualified to provide any specific service."
I actually read that part. I was considering using them back in 2018 when the first wave of sponsorship was going on. I was considering using them because I was struggling to find ongoing counseling in the big city we lived in, because getting to counseling due to the constant construction that was going on was getting out of hand, and I was only getting like 8 sessions a year through my disability benefits. So I was looking for something that would be ongoing that I could access. And as soon as I saw that section in BetterHelp, I was like, this is, how can anybody sponsor? How can anybody accept a sponsorship from this? How can anybody knowingly know this and still be like, hey, get some help from this awesome counseling place that doesn't even vet their counselors? Like, no.
What? Now, that particular passage has since been removed, obviously, but it further demonstrates that the company has a really unstable foundation with the public when it comes to common perception, and their chosen tactic to remedy this is just lots of money. I already talked about how prolific BetterHelp used to be when it comes to YouTube sponsorships, but what I didn't say is that these YouTubers were getting paid something like $100 to $200 per sign-up when they advertised the service.
Holy shit! How much money do they need to throw at this stuff? God damn!
To make it seem like sites show a minimum commission of $100 per trial user, making it an extremely lucrative thing to advertise this mental health application and make it seem like a worthwhile service.
No wonder people were.
That was then, and this is now. So what precisely is connecting these 2 points in time? Answer: BetterHelp is connecting these 2 points in time because they are exponentially dialing up their advertising, once again, possibly relying on the fact that internet users have a very short attention span, probably hoping to capitalize on a younger demographic of adolescent teenagers and early young adults who have been aggressively told that their mental health is the most important thing ever in the history of the universe for the majority of their living lives.
Yeah, that's true, because they're hoping that there's a whole bunch of new users on the internet now that didn't know about this scam 6 years ago, and all of these people are desperate for mental health, and as he just said, they've been told their mental health is like the most important thing ever. And so BetterHelp is like, aha, we will totally milk this for everything it's worth. And there are also probably going to be a new generation of YouTubers that BetterHelp can approach that didn't know at all about the scam 6 years ago. Unfortunately, there are some YouTubers that did take a BetterHelp sponsorship in the beginning, like back in the first day, and then retracted it, but unfortunately now are retaking the sponsorship. I've heard a couple of them. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but I was surprised. And so they're basically, they are counting on this memory hole they're hoping that they were down in,
making them not only hyper susceptible to this, but also relatively uninformed if they didn't pay attention 6 years ago when BetterHelp initially encountered controversy on the platform, which was also pre-COVID, which allows them to capitalize even further on the dramatically increased tolerance people have for telehealth and remote medical solutions, which weren't nearly as popular before then. According to research by the Out Loud group, BetterHelp went from sponsoring roughly 392 videos in third quarter 2022 up to 636 in first quarter 2023, 1,237 in the second quarter, nearly 2,000 in the third quarter.
They're like doubling their sponsorships every quarter. This is crazy.
That's a pretty massive increase over time, on track to be roughly 10 times higher over the span of just 1 year. But seeing that made me wonder why. Why are they doing this now? And what's the reason to dial up advertising that much on a platform whose community previously ejected them with very little sympathy?
Because that community has moved on to other content, I think they're hoping. They're hoping that the community that roasted them is either retired or does different content and won't bring it up.
Before going further, today's video is brought to you by Incogni. 41% you know about or signed up for on, so give them specific legal permission to work on your behalf and let them know what kind of information. I could go into a lot more depth on this. The services they offer and the value they provide is quite large considering, but for the sake of time, I have to keep it trimmed. Again, link down below and promo code ECHELON for 60% off your subscription. Big thank you to Incogni for sponsoring the channel. So the question is why? Why would BetterHelp come back and dump that much money into YouTube right now? Well, I dug around for a while, no luck here, no luck there, but finally I stumbled on something.
Okay.
CareDash. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, which is probably everyone, CareDash is a platform meant to connect people to various doctors, dentists, and therapists. But I shouldn't say the word "is" here, because CareDash doesn't exist anymore.
I think I've heard of this platform. I think I have. This is ringing a bell for me. I think I remember actually one of my blind friends from the States mentioning CareDash.
Yeah, it turns out CareDash was a fraud scheme that had been posting profiles of real physicians, clinicians, and therapists, most importantly, without their knowledge or consent.
Oh, lovely.
That might seem strange, but the incentive is actually very, very straightforward. CareDash would host the profiles of real therapists, but then if someone tried to use their platform to actually book an appointment with that therapist, CareDash would say, oops, sorry, they're not accepting new people right now, and refer that potential customer directly to BetterHelp.
Wow! So it was basically a shell platform designed to send people to BetterHelp. Holy shit.
Try to stay with me here. I learned through an escalated federal lawsuit that CareDash was operated by a company called NewFit Media. And NewFit Media is a multi-million-dollar startup funded by a venture capital firm called Link Ventures. It's got all the typical bells and whistles.
Jesus Christ,
world-class partnerships and strong and passionate creative teams.
This is like some weird rabbit hole of like send mentally ill people to me so I can make money. Like, what the fuck is this nonsense? Holy shit. This is like some major conspiracy level bullshit.
Etc., etc. But if we compress it down to a basic point of reference here, CareDash was a multi-million-dollar fraud platform driving traffic through unauthorized use of therapist profiles to BetterHelp, which was shut down in the first quarter of 2023. This is where my Chrome window almost crashed completely because I had so many tabs open. And turns out that BetterHelp is actually a wholly owned subsidiary acquired by a company called Teladoc in 2015. Teladoc is a publicly traded company, thankfully, which means they have to disclose financials. So theoretically, I should be able to check what's happening, and presto goes the dynamite, yes I can. In the second quarter of 2023, shortly after the closure of CareDash, which was funneling customers directly to BetterHelp through a multi-million-dollar startup platform, and directly before they started exponentially increasing their advertising push on YouTube here, Teladoc disclosed that BetterHelp had roughly 476,000 paying users.
476,000 paying users. And I watched a video a couple of weeks back, and it said it went over the sign-up fee, like the monthly fee. It's like $360 a month. Can you imagine 360 times 470? How many users?
Disclosed that BetterHelp had roughly 476,000 paying users.
Okay, 476,000 times 3. We'll average it out. We'll say 350. What is 350 times 476,000?
350 times 476,000 is 166,600,000.
That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
However, in the fourth quarter of 2023, as BetterHelp is approaching a 10 times higher amount of advertising on YouTube, again, according to research from the Out Loud group, Teladoc disclosed that the number of paying users for the platform had actually decreased to 425,000. That may seem small, but it's actually about 50,000 users,
50,000 people.
and it's over 10% of their entire customer base.
What made them lose that many people, I wonder?
From my perspective, based on the information I've collected so far, it seems like the company is desperately trying to make up for the loss of CareDash, which was benefiting them tremendously as a primary user intake method through their affiliate program, despite not being directly associated with BetterHelp as a company. And they're bleeding subscribers every single day as they funnel money back into YouTube, hoping that people have somehow forgotten who they are.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're hoping that their bad actions have been memory holed so deeply, and that basically the old guard of YouTube has moved on, and so nobody's going to go, "Hey, I know who you are, you scammy fucks. Go away."
That's my guess. Thankfully, there's a couple more pieces of the puzzle here that tie everything together quite nicely, so yeah, let's go over those before doing a final summary. In July of 2023, BetterHelp was officially charged and penalized for sharing health questionnaire answers and other data with advertisers. It's a paltry sum, to be completely honest, $7 million. Affected users, of which there are roughly 800,000, are getting less than $10 each, while the company seems to spend more on YouTube advertising in a single year than the entire fine demanded that they pay. But regardless, it gives a foot in the door to see what's really going on. Quote, "Despite representing to consumers that BetterHelp would keep consumers' information private and only use their information for non-advertising purposes, BetterHelp used and disclosed information obtained from consumers through the intake questionnaire."
Okay, so that's like private information. Like, why are you seeking mental health help? You know, what are your issues? That type of stuff.
And sign-up process for advertising, end quote. So They lied about the data policies, told their user base, "We won't use this information," and then turned around immediately and used it for advertising.
So, and this is not like normal data that's used for advertising. This is like, I'm here because I'm suicidal. "Oh, you're suicidal, eh? Would you like to try this antidepressant? It's a very good antidepressant." It's like, you know what I mean? Like these advertising. Oh my God.
Awesome. But it gets better, or it gets funnier,
worse,
maybe.
Whatever.
That's probably the wrong word. These are serious topics, I know. But consider this. In 2018, CEO Alain Matas published a Medium post that said, quote, "One of the favorite conspiracy theories was that our business model is selling data to third parties."
Favorite conspiracy theories, huh? I'm sorry, didn't we just look at actual verifiable proof?
This is such a far-fetched conspiracy that I feel awkward addressing it. Our model is simple. Members pay a fee to get counseling. Counselors are paid to provide counseling. We are in the counseling business, not in the data business. There is nothing we take more seriously than the security and privacy of our members. It also goes without saying that counseling is a strictly regulated space, and selling such data would be a gross violation of federal laws,
We love the leader.
state laws, HIPAA regulations, and our own terms and privacy policy. And
You mean the terms and privacy policy, the policy that lies? That one? That terms of policy?
okay. Conspiracy theory, hardly even worth responding to, I guess, according to one of the founders. But from 2013 to 2020, according to the now settled FTC investigation, docket C4796, the service was, quote, "continually breaking privacy promises, monetizing consumers' health information to target them and others with advertisements for the service."
But that's just a conspiracy theory, bro. You can't say that as a government agency. You don't want to be a conspiracy
theorist. For example, from 2018 to 2020, respondent used these consumers' email addresses and the fact that they had previously been in therapy to instruct Facebook to identify similar consumers and target them with advertisements for the service,
Oh, look, like what happened with me.
bringing in tens of thousands of new paying users and millions of dollars in revenue as a result.
You
End
shady fuckers.
Oopsie. So BetterHelp is growing just fine while ignoring basic data protection and privacy. But then, after the practice is discontinued, and after an openly criminal affiliate of theirs no longer funnels patients to them with fraudulent profiles, that's when they suddenly take a nosedive and start hemorrhaging customers. Correlation
No.
does not necessarily equal causation, but I mean, come on. It actually goes even deeper. According to an investigation by Jezebel, which monitored traffic from the BetterHelp application and then compared some of it to associated personal data records from Facebook, from the moment the intake questionnaire was filled out, quote, BetterHelp began to silently slip data to dozens of third parties.
Jesus. So as soon as you hit submit, they're like, hi, firms. We've got more data for you. Here, this person's really fucked up. Want to see? It's like,
Monitoring our behavior online and signaling to companies like Facebook, Google, Snapchat, and Pinterest that we were considering BetterHelp treatment. Further down, quote, during a session with a therapist, we found that metadata from every message, though not its contents, was also sent to the social media company, meaning that Facebook knew what time of day we were going to therapy, our approximate location, and how long we
Wow.
were chatting on the app. When we asked about this directly, BetterHelp declined to elaborate on why a social media company needed to know
That's-
quite so much about when and how we were asking for help, details that were connected to our Facebook profiles and thus our identities.
what the fuck? This is insane. This is like there's not anywhere in this platform's anything do they want to help anybody. I'm sorry. There is no they want to help people as much as the guy who invented sticking an ice pick through people's eyes wanted to help people. Okay? They don't want to help people. They just want money. Just like the ice pick guy didn't want to help people. He just wanted the mentally ill to stop screaming so much. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
End quote.
This
That's
is
a
insane.
lot, but let's do a summary here. BetterHelp, a prominent and very prolific YouTube sponsor in the 2018 years, was paying enormous affiliate fees and raking in tens of thousands of users until the community caught wind of what they truly were and basically ousted them. In subsequent years, they collected data from their user base, used and distributed that data illegally to advertise with social media companies, got caught for it, and paid a fine, while also benefiting from the illegal traffic of a multi-million-dollar medical startup that was impersonating therapists. The FTC busted them directly for the data. CareDash got taken down by the FTC as well after a complaint by the NASW. And right after all of this happens, BetterHelp starts bleeding tens of thousands of subscribers. Meanwhile, they start massively dialing up their YouTube advertising campaigns, including the
that's a
number of
shock.
videos that they actively sponsor. Because, what? Time to try it all again? As if the YouTube community isn't going to remember who you are and what you did?
No, that's what I mean. They're hoping that the old guard of YouTube is gone. They're hoping that all these new YouTubers don't care about morals and shit, and that all they want to do is just make their videos and make their money, just like BetterHelp wants to make their money. They assume that everybody on YouTube is just out there to just make the money just like they are.
On top of the other stuff you just did in the meantime while trying to make a comeback? Really? That's the plan? I can't say for sure, and I don't have absolute certainty, but what I see is a company trying to weasel its way back into the ecosystem, and I'm not having it. Please let people know, please make other creators aware that while sponsorships are perfectly fine, of course, I do understand people need money. If they can, it's probably best to find a sponsor that's a little bit more reputable than BetterHelp, because pretty much any YouTube sponsor is more reputable than BetterHelp. I don't normally ask this, but please share the video around. If you want to support, there's links down below. Protect your data with Incogni, kind of a perfect sponsor for this one. Locals and Patreon for monthly memberships, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.
That, for me, is absolutely insane that all of this is going on, and BetterHelp just thinks that, oh, the YouTube community won't remember. and we'll just throw money at this, and we'll gain back all the subscribers that we lost, and we'll just continue to steal data and rake in new users. And we'll rely on the normies that don't do internet searches and all that. We'll rope them in, and that's the shitty part, is they're relying on the normie, the person who watches cat videos and watches silly videos on YouTube to turn off their brain. And those YouTubers will do the sponsorships for BetterHelp because they're not in the commentary sphere. They're not in the question everything sphere. They're in, I make silly content for people to consume, and I'll just take a sponsorship so I can make money. That's what BetterHelp is relying on. And it's sad, really, that we do need more reputable access to remote mental health support, because not everybody can go to a brick and mortar place. People work, people have schedules. Not everybody operates 9 to 5. So yes, we do need more remote mental health support. But when it comes to stuff like BetterHelp existing, people get wary of this whole BetterHelp issue. They get wary of mental health online support, and they don't want to get the help that they need. And BetterHelp is destroying that trust in the remote health system, and it sucks. So let me know what you guys think. I just did an Asmongold thing. I just made a freaking 30-minute react video from a clip I made from during my stream. I don't care. I just pulled an Asmongold. Fuck it. Ugh. And I don't even have any of my tea. I don't have any tea. I need to go make my tea. I need to go pour my water. So let me quickly run and do that. I'm going to not even do a be right back. I'm just going to quickly run and pour the water into my cup.
Hello, now, son, wake up mood. How did you feel when you woke up? Circle.operator tab or long press to reply. Attachment.
That's the good thing about boiled water, is it stays really hot for a long time. So I can just pour the water, let my tea steep, and then run and grab the tea bag out in like 5 or 10 minutes. And we'll be good. Okay. Now, where are we here? How one woman's tragic story changed right to die laws in America. Look, see, Americans even have those laws.
The controversial...
I need to switch scenes. There we go. And remember, guys, there is a stream goal. And if you donate, you can make me do jumping jacks. So if you want to make me suffer, head over to streamlabs.com/blindpress and throw some eyeballs into the jar.
The controversial case of Terry Schiavo gripped national headlines for 7 years between 1998 and 2005.
Terry Schiavo is kind of alive-o. I'm sorry.
But death with dignity, or DWD legislation, goes all the way back to the turn of the century. Apart from Schiavo's case, there have been many well-known instances of people choosing to medically end their lives. Opinions have changed over the years, with 37% of Americans supporting a physician-assisted death in 1947 and a whopping 73% supporting it by 1993.
I'm sorry, but if you are suffering and there's nothing we can do for you, why should we make you exist anymore? And that goes for mental illness too. If you have for years tried different meds, tried different counseling, tried everything, you've been in and out of hospitals, you're suffering, your family is suffering, like everything, and you just don't want to go on anymore, why should you have to?
But it remains a complicated issue, with plenty of pushback from both the government and religious groups. So, today, we're giving you all the facts about the Terri Schiavo case and the history of right-to-die laws in the U.S. But before we reach that light at the end of the tunnel, why don't you reach for that subscribe button? Then let us know in the comments what other legal issues you want to hear about. For now, you gotta fight for your right
Okay, what the
to, die.
Okay, that was a little cringe.
The 19th century was the Wild West, both literally in historical contexts, but also metaphorically regarding medicine. Medical innovations of that period mostly included bloodletting, leeches, and chemicals that are now illegal to own for personal use.
Arsenic, mercury, strychnine. Yeah, those were the days.
However, as medicine began to evolve, the inventions of morphine and chloroform had doctors realizing that they could finally do their jobs without causing mind-numbing pain in their patients.
Right?
It was a pretty exciting time. Doctors were then able to use these new medical developments to offer a physician-assisted passing. That is, until 1885, when the American Medical Association officially put the kibosh on any further mercy terminations.
Really? So it's as early as 1885. Interesting.
Morphine and chloroform could still be administered to alleviate pain, but they could not be used to page the Grim Reaper, so to speak. In 1938, the goal of changing laws about assisted terminations was put forth by the ESA, the Euthanasia Society of America. That's euthanasia, not youth in Asia.
Now, everybody who's shitting all over Canada, did you guys know you had a Euthanasia Society of America?
The early 1980s UK anarcho-punk band. Over the next 3 decades, the ESA tried to promote the idea of dying with dignity, but it seems a lot of society was not down with DWD. So, instead of focusing on the macro, the ESA pivoted in the 1960s to individual rights to refuse life-saving medical treatments. This saw a bit more progress. Working with attorney Louis Kuttner in 1967, the ESA was able to establish the first living will, a document written by a patient that specifies what medical treatment they wish to receive when they are unable to answer for themselves.
Okay, so that's where the do not resuscitate must have come in. Or like, okay, I see.
This is a common concept today, but it was entirely new territory back then. By 1970, about 60,000 living wills were distributed by the ESA.
Okay.
The legal debate around DWD has caused uncertainty throughout the 20th century. Some officials pushed for a painless death for incurables, while others wanted harsher penalties for anyone who attempted or assisted in terminations.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I remember back in 2008 when the Tea Party in the US was a big, big thing. And they were all about the Canadian death panels and how we had our sick and elderly locked in camps just waiting to die. And it was like, no, just no.
This was the case in 1911 when a woman named Sadie Marchant was feeling the pain of tuberculosis. A member of the Shaker colony, Marchant asked for assistance in shuffling loose this mortal coil. 2 Shakers helped Sadie realize her wish, only to be apprehended for murder after the fact. While the case was ultimately dismissed, it did turn a spotlight on the uncertain legal status of anyone who knowingly assisted in the cessation of another's life. She
had tuberculosis in the 1911. What was she supposed to do? Drown in her lung fluid?
even if that person asked them to do it.
Jesus.
Karen Ann Quinlan went to a party in 1975 and helped herself to a few gin and tonics and a Valium to wash it all down. This near-fatal mixture would send Quinlan into a coma from which she would never awake, and kicked off an important headline in the argument for the right to die. Quinlan's family wanted to remove her respirator after discovering there was no chance she would ever recover.
That's the one thing, like, Pincalo and I always talk about this, where he's like, if I'm brain dead and they ask you what you want to do, you unplug me. You know, just I don't want to be like that, and I understand.
However,
that.
the doctors were afraid of repercussions, including potential homicide charges, so the family took the case to the New Jersey Supreme Court. One unanimous ruling later, it was established that an individual's right to privacy does extend to removing life support systems.
Yep.
This meant that Quinlan's father should act in the best interest of his daughter, rather than letting the courts or doctors decide for them.
Right, like, if she's brain dead and the family knows, like, that she would not want to live that way, they should be allowed to take the life support away. That's just how it should be.
Additionally, the ruling said that whoever removed the life support could not be criminally liable for what happened next, since the passing was expiration from existing natural causes. In other words, the accidental overdose is what ultimately took Quinlan's life. The life support systems were just buying her doctor some time, tragically to no avail. Quinlan's respirator was removed in 1976, but Quinlan would not pass away for another 9 years in June of 1985. Wow. Nearly 30 years after that, in 2014, 29-year-old Brittany Maynard got the unfortunate news that she had terminal brain cancer. The newlywed was planning a family with her husband, Dan Diaz, and wanted to spare them the nightmare scenario of having to watch her health decline as she wasted away in hospice care. Instead, she decided to move to Oregon and use the state's DWD laws to finish out her life on her own terms.
Which she should be allowed to do. They're like, there are so many people that are angry about assisted suicide and they call it like murder, and I understand why they feel that way, but if it's not something you would do, then just don't do it. You don't have to get so crazy about it.
Maynard said the decision gave her a sense of peace during a time that would normally be dominated by fear and pain. She passed in November of 2014.
There was a Dutch lady who was basically told she had untreatable depression. She had no kids or anything like that, and she chose to end her life in her house with her boyfriend, and like, that's just that's her right. It's
the Ohio
sad.
legislature became the first to consider a euthanasia bill back in 1906. At that time, Anna Sophina Hall lived in Cincinnati. Her mother was struggling with a painful terminal illness, and she pushed for a DWD Act to end her mom's suffering, garnering support from New York Times columnists and Salvation Army officers alike. Later that same year, Dr. R.H. Gregory tried for a similar bill in Iowa. The British Medical Journal, in response, called him a crank and a notoriety hunter.
Wow. So this is what I'm talking about. All these laws in America, in different states, and you guys want to shit all over Canada for MAID. It's like, do you guys even know that you guys have these laws like in your own country?
Which are some of the sickest turn-of-the-century burns you can dish out. These early assisted termination bills, eventually known as chloroform bills, never ended up becoming laws. You couldn't get through 90s television without seeing some kind of reference to Dr. Jack Kevorkian, aka Dr. Death. But what sounds like a pretty great professional wrestling gimmick is, in fact, the face of the physician-assisted suicide movement. And also a pretty great professional wrestling gimmick. By 1990, 65% of Americans were fine with physicians assisting in ending patients' pain. That same year, a woman suffering from Alzheimer's disease was assisted in passing by Kevorkian, who traveled the country with his so-called death machine. He probably should have spent more time brainstorming names.
Yeah.
They don't write quite as many headlines about Dr. Jack and his big sleep machine. Kevorkian spurred worldwide conversations
His big
about the
sleep
ethics,
machine.
morality, and legality of assisted terminations. In several cases, he faced criminal charges for the work he did, like when he provided a tape to 60 Minutes showing the process of administering life-ending medication to a patient. While
I
those he
remember
helped
that.
believed in what he did, Kevorkian was eventually sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison and was forbidden by law to end anyone else's life upon release.
I remember that 60 Minutes. And it's hard. Because if you look at the reasons for why they are against it, none of it has to do with the person who wants to say goodbye. I still look at the people who are against this as being some of the most selfish people in existence. You're right. You're absolutely right.
He served 8 years of that sentence before passing from liver cancer complications in
Which I'm sure he would have really liked for somebody to come and take his life before that happened.
2011 at age 83. Terry Schiavo was only 26 years old when she suffered a cardiac arrest that placed her in a persistent vegetative state in 1990. After 8 years, Terry's husband Michael petitioned for the feeding tube to be removed to end what he viewed as Terry's longtime suffering.
Yeah, I would not if that was Pinkalu, I would not want him to be a vegetable. That would not be at all. Like, that's not him. He's not that person.
But Terry's parents wanted it left in. And what followed was one of the biggest legal battles in the history of end-of-life care, which dominated news segments for several years. Both sides argued that they were acting in Terry's best interests and making the choice she would have made were she able.
Yeah, I don't think Terry would have made the choice to lie in a bed being a vegetable for the rest of her life.
Terry's parents cited videos of Terry smiling and interacting with them as proof that she wasn't actually in a complete vegetative state, and that more could be done to potentially ease her out of it. The tube was removed in 2001, only to be reinserted 2 days later.
Oh my
More
God.
legal proceedings and arguments from both sides saw the feeding tube removed a second time in 2003. But Florida's then Governor Jeb Bush ordered the feeding tube reinserted in a move that the Florida Supreme Court ruled unconstitutional. Apparently, he couldn't get anyone to clap for him back then either.
No. I felt so like, take it out, put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out, put it in. Like, dude, she's still a person. Okay, the Family Guy song. Yeah, I know, right? If I wouldn't get hit, I would play it.
The case made national headlines by 2005, eventually getting Bush's brother, President George W. Bush, involved in the proceedings. Eventually, the state court ruling prevailed, and Terry's feeding tube was permanently removed after having spent 15 years in a vegetative state. She passed away on March 31st, 2005.
Yeah.
An autopsy revealed that her brain damage was irreversible, with no cerebral cortex function. So she wouldn't have had any awareness of self and was completely blind, disproving any perceived eye contact.
That's the parents. I feel bad for them because they were obviously very hopeful that their daughter would come back to them, and that's, if my kid became a vegetable, I would be desperate for them to come back. But you can't pretend.
Sadly, based on the size of her brain and the loss of neurons, no amount of therapy would have changed her condition.
Her brain atrophied.
According to the Old Testament, Moses came down the mountain with a stone tablet that read, "Thou shalt not kill." And ever since then, the Catholic Church has firmly applied that commandment to physician-assisted terminations. In 1995, Pope John Paul II underlined this point, saying that the termination of a human person is a violation of the law of God. No ifs, ands, or buts, but there is one area where the modern church has been flexible. Earlier popes, like Pius XII, saw a line between mercy terminations and end-of-life.
Her parents were being very selfish. Even if you go by any of the case, it was only about them. Yeah,
Care.
it was.
Declarations on euthanasia in 1957 and again in 1980 reinforced the church's opposition to the subject of assisted self-termination, but recognized a moral right to refuse extraordinary or aggressive medical interventions to preserve life, such as in the case of a Do Not Resuscitate Order, or DNR. In other words, the church was down with DNR, but not DWD.
That makes no sense.
Washington state voters were able to weigh in on a DWD initiative in 1991, when a proposed law would legalize a physician-assisted finale for suffering individuals. This would allow competent terminal patients to be given a lethal injection by their doctor. Opinion polls seemed close, but Election Day told a different story. The movement failed by a 56% to 46% vote,
Ooh.
maintaining the criminality of the act in the Evergreen state. The
Interesting.
following year, California voters participated in a similar act, but the act was struck down by approximately the same margin.
Interesting. A lot of selfish people. A lot of selfish people. Interesting. But not to any of the wars that are in that name. No, no. No, of course not.
Oregon led the charge on DWD
Wars
back in
in God's name are
1994
fine.
and was the first to have voters successfully pass legislation. Unlike the earlier attempts in Washington and California, Oregon's proposal allowed doctors to prescribe the lethal drugs, with the onus being on the patient to take them unaided by a physician. Colorado, Montana, Vermont, and the District of Columbia followed suit afterward, and by 2019, Hawaii's DWD law went into effect. It probably won't be long before we see another Dr. Death start making house calls. The physician, not the wrestler. So what do you think? Do you remember the Terry Schiavo case?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, check out some of these other videos from Our Weird History.
I absolutely remember Terry Schiavo. I remember all of that going on, and I remember even back then saying how selfish the parents were being. Absolutely. I definitely remember feeling that they were being incredibly selfish. They said you don't have to resuscitate them, but you can kill them. Right? Wouldn't not resuscitating them kill them? That's stupid. Anyway, you can't actively kill them, but you can passively kill them. It's totally fine that way. Ugh. Okay, I'm gonna quickly go get my tea bag out of my cup and go to the bathroom. So we'll do like a 2-minute break. Give the stream a share. And I shall return in a moment. Hello? Something just happened. Where am I here? Where am I here? That top is just mean. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's see what we get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. See? That's what happens when you tip. I jump. And that's why I put on the top. Because it's just mean. Okay. Right. Where are we here? Did that. Now it's time for our feature presentation. Anyway. Here we go. It's time for question period from Friday, May 10th. And it's 48 minutes long today instead of like an hour. Let's see what's going on.
Oral questions orales, the honourable member for South Surrey Whitecross.
Oh shit, it's the chick and we don't have Polyev? Who's this chick? Who's this person?
orales, the honourable member for South Surrey Whitecross.
After 9 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the drugs disorder and
Is
death.
that Rona
Open
Ambrose?
access to meth and fentanyl is killing Canadians. BC parents are terrified that children will step on dirty needles on soccer fields. Nurses are breathing in fentanyl smoke as they treat patients in hospitals. On May 21st, Parliament will vote on our motion to ensure this extremist drug experiment is never repeated. Will the Prime Minister vote to reject expansion and prioritize treatment and recovery? Yes or no?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire à la ministre des Dépendances.
Too many Canadians are dying every day from an ever-changing illegal toxic drug supply. The opposition
Yes, it's the
leader
toxic
talks
drug
about
supply.
investing in treatment,
Yes,
but
it's
Conservatives
not.
cut two-thirds
It's
of
not
drug
drugs
treatment
in
funds
general.
when they
It's
were
just
last in
the
government.
toxic drug
Let's
supply.
talk about
That's all.
what save lives. Safe consumption sites, accessible social and healthcare services, prevention, treatment, and harm reduction. This is a public health crisis, not a
This is a public health crisis, and I cannot pronounce the words that I am saying because I am a stupid French cunt. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
lives. Safe consumption sites, accessible social and healthcare services, prevention, treatment, and harm reduction. This is a public health crisis, not a criminal justice issue.
It's a both.
For South Surrey Whitecross.
It's both.
After 9 years, Madam Speaker, it's on them, and they have to do something about it. The Liberal leadership race is well underway, I see, and it seems like the new guy is just like the old guy. Mark Carney testified at the Senate, and surprise, surprise, he announced his support for this Prime Minister's failed carbon tax. Carbon tax Carney couldn't commit to cutting a penny from the Prime Minister's reckless spending. These random Liberals really have a lot in common. If carbon tax Carney won't, and this Prime Minister won't, will someone over there have Canadians' backs and axe the tax?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, if we're going to talk about having Canadians' backs, let's talk about the work that we're doing to protect the environment while making the life more affordable
here we
for them
go.
through the carbon rebate.
Here we go
In fact,
with
if
the
you
carbon
look at economists,
rebate
over
bullshit.
300 economists have signed a letter stating this very fact. Canadians receive more on average through the rebate than they pay through any carbon pricing. In fact, in Ontario, the
Keep
average
saying
family
it.
at the
That'll
end of the
make
year
it
has
true.
$300 more through the carbon rebate. I'm listening to the economists, and I'm seeing
The economists that you paid. Yeah, listen to them.
South Surrey White Rock.
Well, I'm listening to the parliamentary budget officer who says the exact opposite to what that member just said. Inflationary budgets destroy the working class with high interest rates. After 9 years, mortgages, down payments, rents have all doubled. 90% of young Canadians are stuck in housing hell with their dreams of home ownership shattered. Those who do own fear
I
they
think
can't
this is
qualify
Rona
for renewal.
Ambrose.
Mortgage delinquencies
I don't know who
are up
this is.
50% overall, 135% in Ontario, 62% in BC. This is
All parliamentary secretary.
Once again, if the member opposite wants to talk about what the parliamentary budget officer said, he said 8 out of 10 families end up with more money at the end of the year through the carbon rebates.
No, he
through the
didn't.
carbon price.
No, he said the opposite of that. He said the literal opposite of that.
But also, if we're
Holy
talking
crap.
about protecting homes at the very moment that houses were burning in Kelowna Lake Country from
Holy shit.
crisis fires, wildfires, that member was opposing the carbon price. The carbon price.
Yeah, because
actually-
I'm sorry, the carbon price wouldn't have put out the fucking fire. Okay? The fire doesn't care how much money you throw at it. Okay? As long as it's paper money, the fire will go, oh, look, fuel, thank you.
results in a third of our emissions.
Honorable député de Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Madam Speaker, the Governor of the Bank of Canada has repeatedly confirmed that the Prime Minister's spending is keeping interest rates high. Many mortgage holders will face sharp increases in payments when they renew their mortgages over the next couple of years. This is the direct result of this Prime Minister's $500 billion in centralizing inflationary spending backed by the Bloc. When will the Prime Minister and the Bloc stop their out-of-control spending? The Honourable Minister, my colleague, talks about sound management and what was the record of the Conservative leader when he was housing
here
minister?
we go.
He got
Six houses.
affordable housing
Six
units
houses built.
Whereas in my
writing, whereas now we need thousands and thousands of affordable housing because nobody can afford a house.
riding over the past year, hundreds of units have been built. We signed a historic agreement with the government of Quebec. The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Madam Speaker, the minister's been repeating the same infantile answer.
Thank you.
While the Liberal government has doubled the cost.
It is
of
literally an
housing.
infantile answer.
July 1st is shaping up to be a disaster for those looking for a place to live. One of the local organizations says that we're heading for the worst July 1st of our lives. This Bloc-backed government has created disastrous economic conditions for people looking for housing. Will the Prime Minister shape up and stop the inflationary spending that's only putting pressure on the economy and on Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Good morning, Madam Speaker. We're talking...
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Yes. It's afternoon, by the way, when this was recorded.
He talked about childish calculations. Well, yeah, this is an easy one. Counting to six. 6 affordable housing units is what the Conservative leader
because
managed
that's
to
what
get
we
built
needed.
in his tenure
We didn't need
as
thousands
housing
because
minister.
people
So
could
talk
afford
about
to
childish.
live.
Whereas
Holy
222 units have been built in the members' riding in cooperation with the government in Quebec.
Yeah, that member's riding
No,
probably
member for
didn't need
Manicouagan.
that many houses back
Madam
then.
Speaker, the unfortunate thing about the member for Glengarry Prescott Russell's insults is that they hindered opportunities for substantive conversations about French. While he publicly humiliated himself, the report of the Commissioner of Official Languages went almost unnoticed. But the Commissioner severely criticized the federal government, calling it reluctant to offer services in French, and reluctant about allowing Francophones to work in their own language. Instead of insulting Quebecers, shouldn't the Liberals have announced this week that they're finally going to force the federal government to respect Francophones?
Why do we care about French language right now when the rest of the country is going to shit? I'm sorry. Like, seriously, why do we give a fuck about the French language right now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, on this side of the House, we've always been there for Francophones in Canada and in Quebec. And I find it really interesting coming from my colleague, because when the Bloc tries to monopolize this file, they're bothered by the fact that our government and my colleague from Glengarry, Prescott Russell, all the Liberals on this side who are from Quebec, and I would say our whole caucus even, defends French in Quebec and all across the country. We're the only government that does that.
So, okay, so they're saying that Quebec just hates French people as long... So they're saying that as long as you're French, but you have to be in Quebec for the... Okay. Okay.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Madam Speaker, the Liberal member for Glengarry Prescott Russell devoted his 15 minutes of fame to denying the decline of French in Quebec. An odd choice. A very odd choice at a time when the Commissioner of Official Languages is pointing out that in his region along the Ottawa River, that's where he gets the most complaints from. These include complaints from federal public servants who are unable to work in French.
Interesting. And yet they're bolstering English-speaking people for French training. That's interesting.
The Commissioner said the complaints received
attest
to the
that
fact that many federal institutions don't take their language obligations seriously. If the Liberals don't take the future of French seriously, why should the federal government? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, and Madam Speaker rather, let's talk about our government's investments under our action plan. $1.4 billion for the next 5 years to help French. Madam Speaker, we're the only government that has acknowledged the decline in French. We've modernized the Official Languages Act. We're working with Treasury Board. We're working with the Commissioner. And we fully understand the issue. Here on this side of the House, we believe in French. They don't.
A recent report reveals alarming rates of poverty and food insecurity in Nova Scotia, the highest in the country. But the Liberals, like the Conservatives...
Yeah, because they don't want you guys to fish.
...before them are choosing to reward grocery CEOs with corporate handouts instead of cracking down on their greed that is driving up food costs. So while the Conservatives vote against nutritious meals for kids at school, the Liberals are letting food conglomerates gouge Canadians at the till. Why is this government allowing the CEO's greed to go unchecked at the costs of Canadians going hungry?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I agree with the Honourable Member that it's certainly hypocritical for Conservatives to cite food bank lineups as something that they care about when voting against a national school food program that's going to feed over 400.
I don't want national school food program.
That's hypocritical if I've ever heard it before. But it's very good to hear my member or my colleague in the NDP party, who we've worked with successfully to update our Competition Act in successive rounds, which are going to improve prices for Canadians and increase competition, which is, I think, vitally important.
Great answer. Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Madam Speaker, rent is going up faster than Canadians can afford, with families relying on credit cards more and more to buy food and necessities. In my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith, rent went up over 9% last year alone. People can't cut back any more than they already are. Yet the Liberals are sitting on their hands and letting corporate greed drive up
Can't
costs.
say that, though.
This plan is not working. When will the Liberals have the courage to crack down on the corporate greed driving up rent and food prices?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for the question, and I point to the recent federal budget where we announced that we would be taking measures to prevent corporate landowners from buying up single-family homes, but also advancing measures to protect renters and to bring down the cost of rent by adding.
Did he
more
just say
supply, where we
inventing
announced that
measures?
We would be taking measures to prevent corporate landowners from buying up single-family homes, but also advancing measures to protect.
Advanting? Advanting. Do you mean adventing? Like A-D-V-E-N-T, like advent? Or do you mean invent? Because advant is not a word.
Renters and to bring down the cost of rent by adding more supply. We are moving forward with programs that introduce low-cost financing for more rental construction. We've got new subsidies for affordable housing and cooperative housing and an acquisition for nonprofits who can actually take affordable homes and keep them affordable in perpetuity. In addition, Madam Speaker, we're moving forward with a Renters' Bill of Rights and a series of other measures that are designed to protect the interest
Bill
of
of
renters
Rights.
for whom the cost
We
of
don't
living
need
has simply
that.
become too high.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkin in Nicola.
Madam Speaker, after 9 years of this SPENDP Liberal government, finding an affordable
SPENDP?
rental is only getting harder.
Did he say
Despite 9 years of this SPENDP Liberal government,
Oh my god, why are we letting the backbenchers talk? They're horrible.
finding an affordable rental is only getting harder. Despite their record spending, a new report says that rents in Canada increased 9.3% annually in April. It's gotten so bad that people seeking an affordable rental, their only choice, Madam Speaker, is to laugh or cry. Given the dire situation of these renters, could the Minister of Housing please enlighten us as to whether he considers the performance of his government's housing strategy a comedy of errors or a tragedy of oversights?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, if my honourable friend is interested in a tragedy of oversights, I would direct him to the plan put forward by his leader when it comes to housing, which doesn't advance a single measure designed to help renters with the cost of living. Madam Speaker, his plan that he is now campaigning on would literally increase taxes on rental construction in this country.
Yeah,
by
because
putting the
those are
GST
corporations.
back on those construction projects. We have removed the GST, Madam Speaker. We have introduced low-cost financing to build more rental supply to bring down the cost across the ecosystem, across the country. In addition, Madam Speaker, we are putting more money on the table to provide affordable housing options with the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkin in Nicola.
A lot of that spending doesn't kick in until after the next election, so I don't think that promise is worth the paper the minister is written on. This week, the Bank of Canada warned, and I quote, higher debt servicing costs reduce a household's financial flexibility, making them more financially vulnerable if their income declines or they face an unexpected material expense, end quote. Considering the Prime Minister has doubled our debt and has borrowed more money than all Canadian Prime Ministers combined, could he please explain how this warning does not equally apply to his government?
That's a good question.
Madam Speaker, first to correct the misinformation, there is money flowing to projects, including in that member's province as we speak. We've signed multi-billion-dollar deals with provinces to build housing. We've invested billions more to now help the construction of nearly 500,000 units since the inception of the National Housing Strategy. But Madam Speaker, he seems to ignore the fact that Canada maintains one of the healthiest fiscal positions amongst advanced economies. I expect he's trying to distract because they've had a very bad week.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they have. They've had a very bad week. Yes, they've had one idiot make a petition that doesn't have a lot of signatures. And that's about it. They're still like dominating you in the polls. Oh, excuse me. They're still dominating you in the polls. So what are you talking about?
The notwithstanding clause to erode important rights that are protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Madam Speaker, we will move forward with...
The Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Madam Speaker, after 9
Cut
years
him
of
off.
this NDP Liberal government, deficit spending caused skyrocketing inflation, which caused higher interest rates, which is causing higher mortgage payments. The Bank of Canada confirmed that the Prime Minister's wasteful spending is keeping interest rates higher for longer. Now the Bank of Canada is warning, when compared with origination, that the average median mortgage payment will rise more than 20% in 2025 and 30% in 2026. Families can't afford
30%?
this. Will this government stop
Fuck
their deficit
that.
spending so families can keep their homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, what I would like to ask the member opposite...
No. You don't get to... answer a question with a question. Answer her
Is
question.
how does she face her constituents when at the very time that homes were being evacuated, people were losing homes to climate-induced wildfires.
Oh
she
my
was
God.
fighting the price on carbon pollution, and
Because that wouldn't have put out the fire. Money doesn't stop fire. Okay? If a forest fire is going to happen, it's going to happen. Okay? I'm sorry. It's just gonna happen. I'm sorry, what side keeps throwing the censorship bill out as a warning? Yeah, right? We've got the liberals with the censorship bill and all this shit, but the conservatives are the ones that are doing badly, right?
and fighting our work on making sure that we fight climate change. This is what's actually putting homes at risk. We're going to be supporting
the conservatives
who are fighting those fires. Our work on making sure
Wait.
that we fight climate change. This is what's actually putting homes at risk. We're going to be supporting our firefighters who are fighting those fires. We're going to be doing what we need to fight climate change.
Wait.
And we are protecting Canadians.
The federal government supports firefighters? Since the fuck when? Since the fuck when does federal government money go to support fire departments? What are you talking about? You're going to continue to support firefighters. What? What? And you know it's coincidental that 6 fires ignited themselves simultaneously over the weekend. Yeah, because enough money wasn't being spent. Because fire can tell when enough money's being spent. So when the appropriate amount of money has been spent, then we won't have any more fires. But until then, we better watch out for those fires, because they're just going to keep raging until we spend enough money.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Madam Speaker, after 9 years, this Prime Minister just isn't worth the cost. For families with variable rate mortgages with fixed payments, it's even worse. Median mortgage
Don't get a
payments will
variable
increase
rate mortgage.
60%
What can
by
I tell you?
2026.
How
Just
much?
isn't worth the cost. For families with variable rate mortgages with fixed payments, it's even worse. Median mortgage payments will increase 60% by 2026.
Okay, that sucks for my contact. Holy mother of God.
Working class paychecks have been shredded by this NDP Liberal government. Common sense Conservatives would bring in a dollar-for-dollar law to fund $1 of savings for every new dollar spent. This is how families run their households. Can the minister explain how Canadian families are supposed to come up with hundreds or thousands of dollars more a month just to keep their homes?
Great question. The honourable minister.
Well, maybe if they cared more about firefighting, they would just do it.
Madam Speaker, we understand the very serious challenges that families are facing when it comes to the cost of housing.
You
which
do,
is why
huh?
we put a plan on the table that's designed to solve Canada's national housing crisis. What's fascinating about the
Hey,
members
Sean.
in writing,
Hey,
we've
Sean.
actually invested
Sean.
$31.5 million
Shut
in
up.
the community to build thousands of homes.
You don't
for
know
shelter
shit
apartment
about
homes.
shit. Pull up your
The
pants.
Conservative plan lists only 22 communities in the entire country that can benefit from their plans. Kelowna is not on the list. I hope she has a hard time explaining that to her constituents who thanked us for the investment we made to build housing in her community.
Yeah, sure they did.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins-Lévis. Madam Speaker, Quebecers are suffering after 9 years of this Liberal government's wasteful spending and what that's doing to the cost of living. This Prime Minister's overspending knows no bounds, and the Bloc supports all the reckless spending. The Bloc voted to hire another 110,000 federal public servants. The Bloc is okay with sending Quebecers money to Ottawa, and they call themselves the defenders of Quebec. When will this Bloc-backed Prime Minister stop making Quebecers suffer even more with his senseless spending sprees?
Quebecers aren't suffering, don't you understand?
My colleague is referring to sound management. Did you know that during his entire tenure, the Conservative leader, when
Here
he
we
was
go.
Minister
He
of
built
Housing,
6 houses.
built 6
He only
affordable
built
housing
6
units.
houses. Did you know that?
Madam Speaker,
Did you
6
know he only built
units.
6 houses? No, we had no
And
idea.
in
Because you have only
Lévis,
been saying it every day for the last 2 goddamn
affordable
weeks.
housing units have been built in recent months, and we expect to build 8,000 under our deal.
They
with
spend
the
more
government
money
of Quebec.
censoring the internet and gaming. They
The honourable
do.
member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. After 9 years of this Liberal government, there's been 9 years of suffering for Quebecers. Budget chaos.
Gee, why did I
criminals
renew
on
for
the
4
loose,
years again?
unaffordable food
Right?
and housing. And instead of thinking about fixing the budget, the Bloc supports $500 billion in reckless inflationary spending. The more this Bloc-backed government spends, the more Quebecers suffer. The Prime Minister and the Bloc aren't worth the cost. Could they spare a thought for Quebecers and stop wasting their money? The Honourable Minister.
Here's Sean Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm so pleased to have a second opportunity to talk about the 205 affordable housing units that we have created in the members' riding because of
The member
leadership
didn't
of
need
this
fucking
government and the
10
government
years
of Quebec.
ago.
205 affordable units that have been built in the last few months. There's more coming, unfortunately, and this is less good news for the Conservative leader because during his
Here we go.
tenure,
Here we go.
only
6.
6 units of this kind were built in the entire country. The honourable member for Ponce.
If we didn't need a new water heater, I'd say donate for the fucking alcohol I need. But no, donate for the water heater.
The Guardian surveyed 380 IPCC climate specialists. 77% of them believe global warming will surpass 2.5 degrees, far above the target set out in the Paris Agreement. More than 3 out of 4
Yeah, 6
experts
houses.
believe
Forget
that
about the other
governments and the
93,000
oil lobby are
that
leading
were
us
built.
to a
Yep.
disaster. Meanwhile, this government inaugurates the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Do they have their priorities right?
No.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, 2 weeks ago, our report showed that our emissions were dropping.
Wait, wasn't the question about housing?
In the Paris IPCC climate specialists, 77% of them believe global warming will surpass 2.5 degrees, far above the target set out in the Paris Agreement. More than 3 out of 4 experts believe that governments and the oil lobby are leading us to a disaster. Meanwhile, this government inaugurates the Trans Mountain Pipeline.
You're a Green Party person, aren't you?
Do they have their priorities right? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, 2 weeks ago, our report showed that our emissions were dropping. Under the
I was
Conservatives,
shocked that Canadian politics. I was shocked that Canadian politicians had enough balls to sign the bill for censorship a few years ago because a bunch of Indians were butthurt about video games and boobs. Oh God.
They were on an uptick, but we have changed things and emissions are coming down.
We have changed things and
Canada.
emissions are coming
So we're
down, are
doing
they?
what needs to be done.
Yes, because the more money you spend, the more emissions will come down.
Getting it right. We're on a good trajectory. And when you look at the data, it shows the Honourable Member for Repentigny. 77% of climate experts think we're heading for disaster. Only 6% think there's still a chance of meeting the Paris targets. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, the Liberals are inaugurating their new tar
You know what
sands
would help
oil
us meet the
pipeline.
Paris
And we
targets?
have the
Fucking
Conservatives'
punish
only
China
good
and India.
environmental measure is their crusade against Tim Hortons, paper straws, and lids. Frankly, it's pathetic. What's it going to take
It
for
really
Canada
is.
to listen to science and stop sabotaging the fight against climate change?
Or you could understand that climate is forever changing. No matter what we do, climate is forever going to change. And we've only got about 1 billion years left before the sun gets too hot for the Earth anyway and turns it into Venus 2.0. And Well, by then we'll be dead and extinct anyways, because human beings themselves aren't even going to last another million years. We've been around as Homo sapiens for about 200,000. Okay? Before then, it was like hominids, Neanderthal, Homo erectus, all that. Okay? Homo sapien itself has been around about 200, 300,000 years, okay? We're not going to see a million. We're not.
Pinkalo the driving gig moderator. Even though Bill C-63 has absolutely no teeth. Button. Pinkalo the driving gig moderator. Yeah, so now all they do is they take that bill that they petitioned for in 2019 and they roll it out every so often to remind what is possible. Button.
Yeah, so they take that. So yeah. So what they do is they take that bill that they made in 2019 and they roll it out every so often as a warning as to what could happen. Even though Bill C-63 has absolutely no teeth. Kappa had more teeth. Yep.
The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary, Madam Speaker, I fully agree that when you see that the Conservatives are taking issue with Tim Hortons straws because they're trying to adjust to climate change and recycle more, I really don't understand their objection. But here on this side, it's quite the opposite.
Here's the objection. Fucking paper straws are killing more trees that we need to fucking clean the air, you morons.
Are doing what needs doing.
Holy
to reduce
shit.
Emissions. And
yes, printing money
UN
reduces
study
emissions.
shows that
Go
we're
ahead.
on
Yeah,
the right
yeah.
track. So if the bloc could keep working with us, we can have more clean energy here in Canada.
Speaker, in Food Ontario's 2023 reports...
It's funny that the Canadian politicians care more about the Indians and Middle Eastern just like the US politicians. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to show with Canadian politics. And when I cover it, is that the Americans that throw stones at Canada have no idea just how similar things are. And just how equally fucked we are if we don't have a change in government very soon.
Over 800,000 Ontarians accessed food banks, up 38% from the previous year, which was the largest single year ever increase ever recorded. Even worse, a report by Canada's food professor found that nearly 60% of Canadians are eating expired food to make ends meet. The cost of food, fueled by the carbon tax and inflation, are causing families to suffer. When will the Prime Minister admit his carbon tax scheme has failed and axe the tax?
The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary.
Disingenuous.
Where are all the ministers?
Minister admit his carbon tax scheme has failed.
Disingenuous. That's what you call it when someone says they care about something but then do the exact opposite. That's today's Conservatives for you. They claim to care about people in food bank lineups, but oppose our plan to feed 400,000 more children per year.
Yeah, because we don't want a national school food program. We don't want the government to feed our children. What is so fucking hard about that? What is so hard to believe that families who are struggling to feed their kids would rather have more food in their cupboards and fridges than have the government pull up a food truck to the school? Why, how can they not fathom this?
They claim to care about housing, but oppose our investments to build 3.9 million more homes by 2031. They claim to care about affordability, but oppose our investments to help Canadians with the cost of seeing a dentist.
And those paper lids are literally drink trays on top of your coffee. Yeah.
Dentists, getting child care, or accessing life-saving medication. It's clear Conservatives would make cuts that hurt families and a big...
Member for Halliburton, Commercial Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, those Liberal policies are not working. I just talked about the rising cost of food. 3 out of 5 Canadians are eating expired food just to survive. More Ontarians than ever are using food banks. In my own area, the Kawartha Lakes Food Source reports that total visits to the food banks they serve have increased by 10% to almost 14,000 after 9 years.
In the Kawarthas. Do you know what the Kawarthas used to be known for? That's where the rich people went. Okay? The Kawarthas were where the rich fuckers went to build their second houses. Okay? The Kawartha Lakes are that's up in this, like, cottage country area. Right? You're getting up into, like, the Muskokas and shit like that. Okay? That is where the fucking two income families and everything have their house cottages. And I say that literally. They're house cottages that have 3 stories and 5 fucking bedrooms and running water and satellite television. They're house cottages. Okay? That's where these people go to build their second houses that they don't live in the big city. Okay? And these people are using food banks. These people are using food banks. This was Friday, so they took the day off. Yep, probably. I'm glad my great-grandfather left Canada 35 years ago from Canada because Canada's looking more and more special needs each year.
Of this carbon tax rhetoric, I get that it's hard for the Prime Minister to admit he's not worth the cost, but the facts speak for themselves. When will the Prime Minister admit his failed carbon tax doesn't work?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The facts are, Madam Speaker, that Conservatives will never stand up when they have the opportunity to support Canadians. They won't support feeding more hungry children. They won't support building more homes. They won't support access to life-saving medication.
So, don't want National School Food Program. Access to life-saving medication, you mean insulin, and the provinces already have, like, pharmacare stuff in place. Building more houses, we don't want modular pod homes. We want actual brick and mortar construction.
They are disingenuous at best. The hypocrisy is over the top. We see every day in this House that they complain, they holler from the other side, they play politics, they advance slogans and not
what
solutions.
What the fuck are you doing?
They're standing up for Canadians. I don't
Holy
know what they're
shit.
doing on the other side.
Honourable Member for Red Deer, Lacombe.
After 9 years of reckless spending, Canadians are at a breaking point. With record demand at our food banks, we have now learned that 60% of Canadians have resorted to eating expired food. Yet this NDP Liberal government can't help themselves. They have hiked the carbon tax another 23% on April 1st as part of their plan to quadruple it by 2030. Why does this Prime Minister hate Canadians who just want to heat their home, feed their kids, and drive to work? Why won't he just axe the tax?
That's a good question. Why does he hate us so much? Like, seriously, why does the Prime Minister hate us so much?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, Conservatives talk down our economy every day in this House, while in reality Canada's economy
because
has shown
it
great
sucks.
resilience despite the global shocks that it's been under. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio, the lowest deficit in the G7, a AAA credit rating that's been reaffirmed. Warren Buffett, while talking about investing in Canada, says we do not feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form putting money into Canada.
Yeah, because you guys are sending money hand over fist to foreign countries. Of course they're gonna invest. Oh my God.
The IMF, in the most recent fiscal monitor, rated Canada as #1 for budget balance, and this year's budget puts our healthy national balance sheet to work.
The Honourable Member for Moose Jaw, Lake Centre, Lanigan.
Madam Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Food banks are on the brink. Demand is up and donations are down. The Moose Jaw Food Bank
because nobody can afford to donate because they all need their food.
In 2023, up 58%. Madam Speaker, Moose Jaw has a population of 33,000 people.
Wow.
The sad reality is that this
That's not
is
very
what this
big.
government has created. When will the Prime Minister axe a tax to make food affordable again for Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, it is so rich hearing the Conservatives again cite food bank lineups and continually rage farm off the suffering of Canadians.
Rage farm?
They will not step up.
Rage farm.
To support feeding
Motherfucker.
400,000 more kids.
They wouldn't have to point this shit out if it wasn't true. This is not rage farming. This is the truth. You want to sit here and talk about rage farming? This is on you. You're rage farming by not doing your jobs. Holy fuck. Wow. The gaslighting is strong.
That I advocated for many years before getting into politics. I know many members of this House are encouraged by the fact that our government has made a $1 billion commitment to feed more hungry children in this country. I don't understand how the
honourable member
I do not want my children eating off a food truck.
London Fanshawe.
The Liberals are out of touch with everyday Canadians, and Conservatives are worse. After voting no to free medication, the member for Lambton Kent Middlesex wants people to know the real problem isn't that they have to pay out of pocket for care. No, the real problem is Tim Hortons and their new paper coffee cups. While New Democrats are getting free dental care and pharmacare for Canadians, Liberals delay and Conservatives obstruct support for people. Oh, and also they blast coffee lids. Why is this government, like the Conservatives, so completely out to lunch?
Why are you such a crazy bitch? Who the fuck are you? Seriously, who are you?
Reality of everyday Canadians.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for her advocacy. There's nothing more fundamental. You want to talk about liberty? There's nothing more fundamental than having the liberty and autonomy over your own body.
Oh,
and it was so
give it
disappointing
up.
to see Conservative MPs
Give it
speeches
up.
trying to tell our daughters and our sisters what they can do with their bodies.
Yeah,
Well,
kiss
I'm
her
here to
ass
say
because she's a
that
woman.
our party, the Liberal
Kiss
Party,
her
our
ass.
Prime Minister, and
Kiss her ass because she's a woman. Don't answer her question either, by the way. Kiss her ass because she's a
stands
woman.
firmly behind not only a woman's right to choose when it comes to making a choice over her body, but to make sure that she has the reproductive medicine so she has full autonomy and control over her own body.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
It's National Caregiver Month, and 50% of women are taking care of their elderly parents or loved ones with a disability. And 1 in 5 of those caregivers report spending more than $1,000 a month to take care of their loved one.
Yeah, what about the men that take care of their loved ones with a disability, huh? Women take care of their loved... There are a lot of caregivers in Canada that take care of their loved ones, women most affected.
And these costs are only going up. The Liberals keep letting women down.
Oh, fuck off.
For years, the Liberals promised families a simple, refundable caregiver tax credit. They haven't delivered. When will the Liberals give women the respect they deserve and finally make the caregiver tax credit refundable?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
They won't.
Madam Speaker, our government has stepped up and implemented the law. We have introduced the disability benefit, and this benefit is the single largest line item in the budget. $6.1 billion over 6 years. This
$200 a month. What the fuck are we supposed to do with that?
This is an important first step, a step that will help Canadians alleviate poverty. We need to build upon this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable, l'Honourable Député de Lac-Saint-Louis.
The Minister of Sport and Physical Activity has said all along that Canadians deserve a safe, inclusive, and welcoming sports system. Our sports system needs to be grounded in human rights. Accountability, integrity, and safety
Where are
need to
you
be at the
going
center
here?
of sport governance and operations. Can the Minister update the House on her progress to create a safer sports system in Canada, one that reflects and celebrates our Canadian values?
What the hell question was that? Like, seriously, what kind of question was that?
Minister of Sports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've heard very clearly about the need for systemic reform and culture change in sport.
survivors have bravely come forward so that we can learn, better protect our kids, and improve our systems and processes. What's been going on in sport, the maltreatment, the abuse, the discrimination, is unacceptable and has to stop. And that's why we announced the creation of the Future in Sport Commission, the membership of which we announced yesterday. Madam Speaker, along with the member from Lac Saint Louis, all of us here in this House, indeed all Canadians, need to build for our children the sport system that's safe and that they deserve.
You're here.
Honourable Member for Langley Eldergrove.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, it is clear he is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. His radical experiment in British Columbia with taxpayer-funded hard drugs and legalized street drugs has led to more crime, chaos, and disorder. Common Sense Conservatives have put forward a motion to put an end to this risky experimentation. So, will the Liberals vote with us to ban hard drugs and to offer recovery and hope instead? Yes.
No, because they want us to be addicted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Why is she answering in French?
From the beginning, what we have offered is to
help because she can't
through
speak English.
Treatment, harm reduction, strengthening legislation. We are here to help.
How is treatment and harm reduction meaning giving out hydromorphone and fentanyl to...
No one chooses to become addicted to drugs, and that's...
What did you just say?
Deserves full support. No one chooses to become addicted to drugs, and that...
I'm sorry. We were all taught how addictive things like meth and crack and heroin are. Okay? You can't... And I am telling you right now that while there are some horrific things involved in like trafficking of humans and stuff, that people do get drugged and addicted to drugs that way, the majority of drug addicts chose to put the needle in their arm, or chose to light the crack pipe, or chose to smoke meth. Okay? So, as awful as drug addiction is, yeah, they did choose it. They did, because they chose to do it that first time with the risk of addiction. So, unfortunately, they did choose it.
And that's why we're there to help everyone.
After 9 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder caused by his wacko policies. It's wacko to allow drug use in parks,
London and home.
hospitals,
Okay.
and playgrounds. It's wacko that this government's policy is exposing kids and healthcare workers to lethal drugs. Will the Prime Minister and his government support our common sense motion to ban hard drugs and offer recovery, or will they continue with his wacko drug policies of legalized use of meth and fentanyl in children's parks?
Right here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
That guy needs
Madam
to
Speaker,
retire.
We've engaged with experts with a range of views to learn from current experiences and inform this practice moving forward. We're working with all federally funded programs and have ramped up mitigation and enforcement measures.
What? Do you even know what you're saying right now? Because I don't. It just sounds like you were given a bunch of words in a bag and you just shook them. It's like you were given Scrabble tiles and you just kind of made words and started saying them.
We expect provinces and territories to do the same, and the evaluation is ongoing. We will do what we need to do.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows.
My mother has lived in the States since '99. It's no different than here. Nope.
Speaker, having eyes, why can't the Liberals and NDP see the death and destruction their radical drug experiment is having in Canada?
Because they don't care. They want us to be addicted, so we'll stop fighting them.
From opioids. When will the Liberals and NDP realize that their wacko safe supply...
And I wouldn't, and for me to say that, the reason I'm saying that is because they are handing out fucking pharmaceutical grade drugs. That's where and then the drug addicts go to their dealer and they're like, here, I've got some fucking medical grade shit. Want to trade? Give me my usual. Here, you have this. That's what happens.
Supply and hard drug legalization is destroying this nation. Will they vote with common sense conservatives to ban hard drugs, stop taxpayer-funded drugs?
Oh,
and
Jesus
put that
Christ,
money into
just speak
detox
French. There
and
are
recovery?
translators for a reason, right?
The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madame la Présidente, c'est justement parce qu'on est...
Thank you. See, but she's speaking French now.
We do listen to experts, and we are attuned to people's needs, the needs of those who are on the streets using drugs. That's why we have options.
That's why we give them medical grade drugs instead of letting them do tar heroin instead. Oh wait, they're still doing tar heroin. They're just giving the drugs you handed them to their dealer. You idiot.
Solutions like strengthening legislation, harm reduction, treatment, and supervised consumption. Those are the steps we're taking.
Madam Speaker, these liberals are more offended by their policies being called wacko than they are by finding needles on kids' soccer fields or skyrocketing overdose rates.
Yeah, that is kind of sad. They're upset because their policies are being called into question. Meanwhile, there are people literally dying from drug overdose. People can't afford to eat. People can't afford to live in a house. And people are getting frustrated, so they're using words like wacko and radical, and the liberals are like, oh my God, the words!
Conservatives
Don't
have put
use
forward
those
a motion
words!
calling on the government to ban hard drugs and offer recovery programs across Canada. Will this government vote in support
Yeah, they're
of
not
a
talking
common
about
sense motion?
throwing addicts in jail. They're talking about, treatment and recovery and shit.
Or will they continue pearl clutching over words like wacko?
The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary.
We had such hopes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Harm reduction is healthcare. Harm reduction is the door to the system. Safe consumption sites have responded to more than 53,000 overdose since
Oh my God, 53,000 overdose incidents?
2017. Our gun is the door to the
Since
system.
2017, 53,000 overdoses. Holy fuck, that's a lot.
Safe consumption sites have responded to more than 53,000 overdose since 2017. Our government has invested $200 billion to support provinces.
$200 billion.
And territories. Our government has invested $200 billion to support provinces and territories.
$200 billion, huh? That's an interesting number. I heard that right?
53,000 billion those since 2017. Our government has invested $200 billion to support provinces
$200 billion
and territories, delivering services needed in addition to the $1 billion we have directly invested to address this crisis. We will use
It
every
still
tools
fucking
to
kills
at
me
our
that they're proud of
disposal
this.
to end the toxic drug and overdose crisis.
Yeah.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. 117 days. The federal government has been ignoring its civilian employees at Quebec's military bases for 117 days. They're on strike. Well, the government cannot ignore them anymore because their representatives from Saint-Jean, Bagotville, and Valcartier are here today. They're here to ask why Quebecers have the lowest wages in Canada, to ask why Quebecers are treated like second-rate workers, and to ask why the Liberals have been ignoring them for 117 days.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Answer that question.
Will the government level the pay scale and stop discriminating against Quebec employees in the forces?
I didn't know we had $200 billion. Neither did I. Isn't that a fucking trillion? Isn't that $1 trillion rather $2 trillion? Yes. It is.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We
Thank
have
you, Madam Speaker.
apparently $2 trillion invested in drug overdose care and recovery and harm reduction.
I appreciate my colleague's question because it gives me the opportunity to talk about an announcement we made in April with the well-being services of the Canadian Armed Forces. We reached a settlement of non-public fund workers in Kingston and Petawawa. This agreement we've reached will increase by 13.75% the salary.
Saint-Jean is not near Kingston or Petawawa, though.
Wage, and we hope that those who are on strike will reach a resolution, and we encourage them to come back to the table. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Historically, the majority of civilian employees in the forces have been women in Quebec, and they're right to wonder why the federal government is discriminating against them.
Here we go with the women most affected thing
again. For example,
again.
they're right to ask why a financial services assistant in Bagotville deserves $10 less than someone doing exactly the same job in Ottawa. Strikers are right to demand equal treatment on all Canadian Forces bases. And at a time when the armed forces are struggling to recruit, they should be demonstrating that they respect their employees. They are ready to come back to the table. They will be suggesting a new contract at 3:30 today. Will DND finally listen to them?
Nope.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Once again, I thank my colleague for her question, and I appreciate the question because we do know that it's possible to reach solutions and agreements together at the bargaining table like we...
Do you? Because there's a whole public servants union that hasn't had a pay raise in 2 years. So, you sure about that?
We did in Kingston, in Petawawa, and here in Ottawa. The agreement that was negotiated will significantly increase salaries by 13.75% over 3 years. We hope that the three striking parties will return to the bargaining table.
They just said that they would.
I wish to thank all employees working.
That wasn't an answer. You didn't answer the question.
For both. Madam Speaker, after 9 years of this Bloc Liberal government, the housing crisis is unprecedented. July 1st will go down in history, but not for the right reasons. This crisis is affecting not only large urban centres, but also our regions. In an article in La Presse this morning, the Quebec Police Association noted a significant increase in homelessness. This is a sad reality. It's caused by lack of housing and the rising cost of living. When will this Bloc-backed government stop announcing programs with even more bureaucracy and instead ensure that housing is built in the regions too?
But, Madam Speaker... Madam Speaker, the environment and 6 houses. The Conservative leader only built 6 houses. Don't you understand that? Don't you care about feeding children off of a truck, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker?
The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the question. It's interesting because the member who asked the question supports a plan in which we don't build affordable housing. The member is in favor of increasing tax rates for new apartment construction. That is not okay, Madam Speaker. Our plan is to invest.
It's not okay to tax corporations that are building apartments?
We just reached a deal with Quebec to build 8,000 housing units. Meanwhile,
we shouldn't need that many affordable housing units. We should be able to have just regular affordable housing costs.
When he was housing minister, he managed to build a grand total of 6 housing units throughout the country. The Honourable Member for both. Madam Speaker, at that point, rent was half as expensive. The government should really follow the situation more closely. Now, after 9 years, this government, with the support of the Bloc, has voted for $500 billion in centralizing inflationary budget spending that is driving up the price of everything, pushing more people into homelessness across Canada. The government's failure to control its spending is the cause of all these problems. Add to that a carbon tax, and you'll understand the situation today. When will this Bloc-backed Prime Minister stop wasting money so that Quebecers can start living and eating with dignity again?
Never, never, never!
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a great deal of respect for the member for Beauce. He used to be the mayor of an important municipality in Beauce. Now, here's what I would like to know. How does he feel about the attitude of the Conservative leader? The Conservative leader, when he was housing minister, created a
Holy
6
fuck!
housing units. And
again with the 6
and continues to insult Quebec's municipalities and their leaders.
He's not insulting the Quebec municipalities. He's calling the government incompetent.
Quebec municipality. How does he feel about being called incompetent by a Conservative leader who built only 6 housing units?
I don't feel that I'm being called incompetent.
Madam Speaker, does the minister know Nadia Gagné Has he heard of Natia Gagné? Natia Gagné is a woman who lives in a van. For the past few days, she's been living in a van. Why? Because she no longer has housing. There are 24,000 people in Montreal waiting for an affordable housing unit. The minister often forgets the number 9. 2 terms as government plus 1. 9 years in government. Is he proud of his government's track record? Is he proud of the situation today caused by 9 years of his government?
That's a good question. They keep going, oh, well, the conservative government only built 6 houses. That was 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago. You guys have had your chance. It's now on you.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the member. He's another member that I have a great deal of respect for. He is well respected and important.
Are you sure?
In Quebec, and I thank him for bringing up Nathalie. There are many Nathalies and people like her in Quebec who need housing. It's a difficult situation in 2024 in Quebec. That's why people need a government that invests in them, not an official opposition who insults municipalities. Does
but
he
he
feel
didn't.
That insulting Quebec's municipalities
He didn't
is a sign of
insult
respect?
municipalities. He
The honourable
insulted
member for
the
Saint-Léonard
Liberal
Saint-Michel.
government.
Madam Speaker, the Conservatives continue to show their true colors. The Conservative leader said he'd override the rights of Canadians by using the notwithstanding clause.
In regards to the carbon tax, you dumb bitch.
On Tuesday, the member for Peace River Westlock introduced a petition here in the House to restrict abortion access.
No, he didn't. He put a petition forward to have regulations on abortion and laws on abortion because Canada doesn't have a federal abortion regulation, which we don't need because abortion is a provincial healthcare matter.
And on the same day, every Conservative member voted against a bill that would provide contraceptives to women who can't otherwise afford it.
Because if you go to the public health unit of your municipality, you can find contraceptive options every single day.
So how about we just cut the salaries of everybody that is a representative or a member of parliament? Button.
So how about we just cut the salaries of everybody that is a representative or a member of parliament? That's a good idea. All the Liberals do is lie. Yep, that's true.
And yesterday, coincidentally, an anti-choice March for Life protest was held here in Ottawa. Can the
You guys had a pro-choice counter-protest, so don't act like you didn't have a chance to fuck off.
Assure women across Canada that their
Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for her incredible advocacy in making sure that women have autonomy over their own bodies. And, you know, it was so disappointing on the one hand to see, and I understand.
I mean, if we cut 30% across the board, these people would be singing a totally different tune. Yep. They totally would.
Over half the Conservative members are anti-choice, and to see them
No, they're not. What are you talking about? Over half the Conservative members are anti-choice.
And to see them speaking about them telling our daughters,
our
sisters, what they should do with their bodies.
Well, they're telling our daughters and our sisters they can't have abortions. No, they're not. And abortion shouldn't be birth control. Abortion should be a medical procedure you do if you are fucking gonna die. If you're either gonna die or have a baby. And you'd like to have more babies in the future and you'd like to get this thing fixed, then yeah, have an abortion. Other than that, it's not birth control. Because that bill had money hidden in it to go to Ukraine and other places, not in Canada. Maybe that would you're making sense again.
To vote against women being able to get the reproductive medicine they need means that they want them to have no choice whatsoever about their bodies. Not a choice of...
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Thank you for cutting that off.
Employment pocketed money from his business partner, the same business partner that was lobbying the minister's department while securing $110 million in government contracts. Wow. Meanwhile, the minister actively hid this shady arrangement from the ethics commissioner. For 2 weeks, the minister has refused to answer the most basic question, so I will ask it again. How much did the minister pocket? How much? How much? How much?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Why is the Minister of Health answering that question?
Well knows that the minister has answered these questions, and of course he would not
No, he
dare
hasn't.
say the things that he just said in this chamber where he uses parliamentary privilege outside, because he knows to do so would have serious consequences.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Bring it on.
Madam Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, the Canadian Armed Forces have 16,000 personnel vacancies and a crisis of morale, recruitment, and retention. That's why the Defence Committee unanimously voted to cancel the April 1st rent increase for base housing. Like other Canadians, our troops can't afford rent and groceries and know that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister show that he actually supports our troops and reverse the April 1st rent increase? Yes or no?
Nope.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Screw the armed forces.
Madam Speaker, I'll take no lesson, and I mean no lesson from the Conservative when it comes to defense spending. So.
Wow. Wow. I will take no lesson from the Conservative on the you know what? We'll take no lessons from you.
Below 1%. They voted against actually a salary increase for our members. They voted against.
Then okay. Yeah, because you're sending money to the Ukraine again.
For Ukraine, they voted against Operation.
Of course they did.
They voted against $40 billion for NORAD modernization, and they badly mismanaged our procurement for years. So, Madam Speaker,
I'm sorry. You guys are dealing with $21 million to one contractor who didn't do IT work until Justin Trudeau got elected, and you're talking about mishandled procurement? How about you go fuck yourself?
For NORAD modernization, and they badly mismanaged our procurement for years. So, Madam Speaker, today in this House, I have no lesson to take from that side.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
When asked by the media, the Immigration Minister clearly stated that all international students undergo a criminal record check to enter Canada. That is false. Police certificates are not mandatory for international students that enter our country thanks to this Liberal government. This Immigration Minister is following the exact same reckless path of his predecessor, who notoriously lost 1 million people. Why did the minister mislead Canadians, and can you tell us how many international students were let in without police clearances?
All of them.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, for far too long, international students have been exploited and vulnerable from abuse and fraud. That's why we are taking concrete action. We implemented a new verification process to authenticate the acceptance letters. We raised financial requirements to ensure they are prepared for their lives in Canada. And recently we announced a national cap on student visas. Madam Speaker, we have a responsibility to ensure international students are set up for success. That's exactly what we're doing.
What
the
about
Honourable Member
criminal
for
record
Mississauga
checks?
East Cooksville.
Madam Speaker, international trade is very important for Canada, supporting roughly 1 in 6 jobs nationwide. While Conservatives in this House voted against modernizing free trade with Ukraine, cheering on damaging and illegal bridge blockades, and supported Brexit, on this side of the House, we know that Canadian businesses, innovators, workers, and exporters benefit from a strong, stable, progressive, and rules-based international order.
Gee, tell me you're a one-world government without telling me you're a one-world government.
As to how the government is standing up for free trade on the global stage.
And I will take no lesson on defense from the French.
Had the honor of attending the OECD ministerial
Good
meeting
stuff,
where
that's
I
a
met
good
with
one.
key allies and stakeholders to discuss the importance of inclusive, resilient, and sustainable trade, especially in this space of rising populism and protectionism. We know that promoting free trade and investments grows the economy, creates good jobs right across Canada.
Not protectionism. Oh God!
Important work as we work together to advance Canada's trade agenda. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sooke.
Madam Speaker, this government promised to remove criminal records for simple possession of drugs from more than 250,000 Canadians. After 2 years, we are still waiting for the government to act because the Liberals are saying this is hard to do. You know what's hard, Madam Speaker? Not being able to get employment or housing or to travel to see loved ones because of a criminal record. These records disproportionately impact Indigenous and racialized Canadians and all those living in poverty. Will the Liberals keep their promise and meet the
What,
November
we're going
legal
back to
deadline
2012
to make
now?
sure all of these simple
Apparently.
possession records are removed?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I greatly appreciate that question, as our government agrees that, and we are committed to dealing with the systemic racism and discrimination
systemic
that often is
racism
in our
and
criminal justice system.
discrimination.
It is why I welcome working with the member opposite to meet our November 2024 deadline to implement C5. Madam Speaker, we are working with partners like provinces and territories to do just that. There is more work to be done, but we are absolutely committed to creating a fair justice system, because that creates safer communities.
À la suite de discussions entre les
So that is the end of question period for today, or for Friday. Nobody let the backbenchers talk, seriously. Don't let the backbenchers talk. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Just wow. Just all I can say is just wow. Oh my god. This is just, I just can't even with this. Holy shit. And the shitty part is that I have one more video to do, except my earbuds are dying. So I'm going to save that video for tomorrow, because it's still, what's it called, relevant. So I'm going to save that for tomorrow, but that's going to bring us to the end of our lovely coffee stream, which was a tea stream today. I will be back tonight on the Combat Hour, which is another chance for you to come and make me jump up and down. So please come by and hang out with me and chat. I hope to see you tonight. I'm aiming for a 9 o'clock start time. So thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for making me do jumping jacks. And I will see you guys later tonight. Have yourselves a wonderful Monday afternoon. I'll see you tonight. Bye, guys.